and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and it's time for my Game Week 28 team selection video, where we're going to do things a little bit differently in this video. We're going to try and change things up a little bit to make things a bit more interesting and show you guys what I'm actually planning for the future with my team. So hopefully you're going to enjoy this one. If you do, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. But first of all, let's have a look at my Game Week 27 scores. So, Game Week 27 for me was a decent score, to be fair. 94 points, it's not too bad, really, and it has given me a green arrow, so I'm not complaining too much, but at the same time, it was a bit of a week of disappointment, and I think we all know why. I did end up captaining Solly March, because I thought, you know, this is a really good shout, a really good differential. I wanted to try and go for someone a little bit different, try and get ahead of the pack a little bit by going for a player who I genuinely had a lot of faith in that could actually outscore Tony, and as we know, he did score twice in Game Week 27, but only one of those goals was counted towards FPL. It's just one of those quirks of the game due to the rules that kind of decide that players can't change. You can't change scores after an hour after the final game of the day has completed, something like that. So yeah, because of that kind of obscure quirk in the rules, it means that March's goal was actually counted as a Harrison own goal, even though, you know, every other thing that's counting up goals, Opta, whatever, the Premier League themselves, everything, Brighton, the club, everything is counting it as a March goal except for FPL, which is unfortunate, but it's just one of those things. We have to move on. And I could complain and complain about this one, but at the end of the day, there's nothing that could be done. And am I still enjoying FPL? Absolutely. I'm still enjoying it. So I'm not going to start crying about this one, but, you know, a little bit of a shame. But, hey, one of those things, we'll move on. And I'm still very glad to have March in my team at the end of the day. Aside from that, pretty good scores all around. Kane, Tony smashing it. McAllister was a decent pick in the end. And my double Brentford defence end up coming in clutch with a clean sheet in the second game. So, overall, decent points. Not too many points on the bench to scare me too much. I know a lot of people considering that bench boost in Game Week 27. I didn't go for it in the end. So, yeah, I feel like we did okay. Could have been better. Don't get me wrong, but maybe it's okay. I don't know. It's a green arrow, so I guess that's a good thing. Anyway, let's move on to Game Week 28, because I think this is where things are going to get really, really interesting, and see how our wildcard team from Game Week 26 is going to start shaping up towards those double game weeks, the blank game weeks, and everything like that. So let's, first of all, put some players on the pitch for Game Week 28. Okay guys, 2 free transfers, 3.8 million in the bank, so we've got a little bit of budget to play with, but we might find ourselves with a little bit more in the bank by the end of this video, and you'll soon see why. So let's lay some players on the pitch. So Kepa in goal first of all, game against Everton, very high chance of a clean sheet, it being a home game as well. Chelsea have been one of the best defences in the league of recent times, and also Kepa is making lots of saves as well. So you wouldn't be too surprised here to see a low scoring game, Chelsea winning 1-0 or something like that. Kepa with a couple of saves could potentially even be on bonus points as well. So in general, I like Kepa a lot for this game week. He's a keeper that I've been very, very passionate about owning for this game week, so I'm pleased to go ahead with him. Into defence, we've got Kieran Trippier first of all. Nottingham Forest is a decent fixture as well, because Nottingham Forest aren't really scoring many goals. They're another team that doesn't have too many chances to score, and we're going to see a theme in my defence here, really, where we've got a lot of defenders who are playing against teams that don't really score goals, which is very good. Trippier as well is going to have that attacking threat, and Nottingham Forest, we also know, have been really bad defensively, so they've just been bad in general, and I feel like if Newcastle players are going to get some attacking returns, maybe Trippier is going to be able to create a few chances, get in behind that defence, and if he does, even if he doesn't get that assist that we so desperately want, we got one last week, but not the clean sheet. Even if we don't get the clean sheet, you're going to get bonus points from him as well. Zinchenko up next. He's playing against Crystal Palace at home. Another really good opportunity for a clean sheet, because Crystal Palace just aren't scoring goals at the moment at all, which is quite mad, really. So looking forward to that. Zinchenko also taking a lot of shots on at the moment. Kind of aside from the strikers, or the forwards, I guess, Saka, Martinelli, Ødegaard, of course, there as well. Aside from these guys, Zinchenko is taking the most shots on among all of the defenders, and also creating the most out of all the defenders as well. His numbers are really looking quite high over the last 5-6 game weeks, which is really good. So if we're going to get attacking returns from defenders, Zinchenko again still looks really likely. We're going to double up on the Newcastle defence with Botman, who's going to come into this team. Again, Nottingham Forest away. Not really expecting too much from Botman other than clean sheets, although I have to say, Botman has been taking a few headed chances recently. We've seen him being a bit more of a target man than we've previously seen over recent recent game week. So you never know whether you could get a little cheeky corner goal or something like that from him. Next up, Rico Henry against Leicester. So this is where the fixture is not so good. Yes, Leicester can score a goal here and there. They're certainly not one of the best attacks, and you'd still say that this is a pretty decent fixture for Brentford, knowing how well they can defend at times. But this is certainly not as good as the likes of Trippier, Zinchenko, Botman. The chances of those clean sheets are not quite as high. What I do like about Henry is that he has been getting forward quite a lot recently. Another player who's kind of been adapting to moving slightly further forward, creating a little bit more, taking a few more shots on as well. He's actually been more of an attacking threat in terms of shots and assists than all of his other teammates in defence, including Ethan Pinnock, who is also here, who I did bring in a few weeks ago because I liked the look of his goal threat. You know, he was getting a few chances from those corners. He has slightly slipped behind Henry now in terms of those stats, but still a pretty decent pick. If you have him already, you could definitely keep him, but a player that you could consider moving on. And one thing I'm not so keen on about these Brentford defenders, although I think this game week's fixture is okay, I'm looking at that double game week. Brighton, who are in fantastic form at the moment, scoring so many goals. They just look amazing at the moment, don't they, guys? And Manchester United away as well, which is, you know, always a difficult fixture. Man United have been in some good form. Not so much super recently, but in general, Man United are having a really good second half to the season, aren't they? So, in general, I don't mind the Brentford defenders, but I would be willing to move them on as well. Into midfield, we have got Saka, first of all. Saka against Crystal Palace. Here's an interesting fact about Crystal Palace. They're actually conceding most of their chances down the side, the flank that Saka plays on that right wing, in terms of the attacking team on the right wing, or the left side of their defence, Crystal Palace's defence, which is why I kind of had that faith in Solly March last game week as well, because they were playing Crystal Palace, and I thought he could do the business there, and he did, to be fair. So maybe we could see something similar from Saka this game week. So I think this looks pretty good as a fixture for Arsenal in general, and I think, you know, the triple up on Arsenal is going to be a real advantage for this game week, where there's not really too many other midfielders that are likely to score goals. So luckily we have got another Arsenal midfielder in Martinelli, who I expect to be playing striker again for this game week, because of that simple fact that Jesus, I don't think he's quite ready to start a game. I think Gabriel Jesus is just going to be kind of out of the team until after the international break, and then he'll start starting games again. So until then, we're probably going to see Martinelli playing in the striker position, even if Jesus is back by some miracle. I know he has already had minutes, but I just don't expect him to start yet. But even if Jesus is starting, we are still going to have Trossard potentially being rotated for Martinelli. I do feel like Martinelli would play ahead of Trossard at the moment, just because Martinelli right now is genuinely Arsenal's biggest goal threat. It was kind of Saka taking the most shots on and stuff like that, but Martinelli has really emerged over the last 5 game weeks to be actually miles ahead of Saka in terms of goal scoring opportunities, which is really, really good to see from him, to be fair. And I think a lot of people are kind of wish that they could get involved in some Martinelli attacking returns. Maybe they've had Saka or Ødegaard instead in recent weeks, but I think there's still time for Martinelli to get some really decent returns in this season, and I do feel like, particularly with Gabriel Jesus back, he really actually improved Martinelli a lot, and we saw that a lot at the beginning of the season. Do you remember, guys, how essential Martinelli was earlier on in the season when Jesus was playing alongside him? They complement each other so well, and Jesus opening up a lot of space and creating for Martinelli, which has been fantastic. So I kind of like Martinelli a little bit for the long term, and although I'm sure a lot of us will be looking to remove some Arsenal players in the near future, I'm not sure I'm prepared to actually remove Martinelli, particularly at the cheap price that he is. He's kind of making a bit of a mockery of that price, which is a great thing for us owners. Anyway, let's move up front. We've got Erling Haaland, first of all, up front. He hasn't got a fixture, so that's kind of unfortunate. A player that a lot of people are considering removing from their fantasy teams, and we are going to talk a little bit about that in just one moment. But yeah, no fixture in game week 28, and a home fixture against Liverpool in game week 29. Some people are saying that Liverpool are an amazing defence now, and they're not going to concede goals ever again. Other people are saying Haaland is a player who scored 5 goals against Leipzig just the other day, so he's going to score another 5 goals against Liverpool. So I guess it depends where you sit in terms of that. Do you think Liverpool are a good defence, and maybe Haaland is not going to score 5 goals every game? Or do you think Haaland is the absolute GOAT, and he is going to score 5 goals against every team, including Liverpool, who are a tragic defence? A lot of like differing opinions on that one, and I would just advise you guys to follow your heart on that one, really. Next up, we've got Harry Kane. Decent-ish fixture against Southampton, but I don't think it's an amazing fixture. Harry Kane's got a good record against Southampton, to be fair, but Southampton have been really improved since the World Cup break in terms of their defensive numbers. Like, really improved, actually. They're one of the top defenses, maybe 4th or 5th top defense, depending on what metrics you use. So that is something that is a little bit of a concern. And also, Harry Kane away from home hasn't really been performing. So yes, I like Harry Kane. He's been a top scoring FPL asset for the whole season. He's been doing really well. A really obvious player to own right now. And I have no doubt he can get something out of this game. But I don't think it's as cut and dry as a lot of people are making it out to be. Particularly when we look at those Arsenal players and, you know, they've got a much better fixture. Maybe we could go for someone like that. Or finally, Tony as well, who's got a home game against Leicester. Another team that's been one of the weakest teams in the league. One small consideration about Tony is that he is on 9 yellow cards. And if he gets that 10th, he is going to serve a ban. And that's before we even talk about his gambling ban as well. That's a whole nother conversation for another week. It's not going to quite come into play probably for a few weeks yet, so we don't need to worry about that quite yet. But certainly the yellow card looming is a concern, and if he gets a yellow card against Leicester, it is going to mean that he misses the double game week, which is definitely something that we don't want to have to deal with. So a concern there. Tony is going to get a yellow card at some point in the rest of the season, and he is going to serve a ban. He is a ticking time bomb, but he is just so good. So it's such a difficult situation, isn't it? You want to have Tony. You know he can score goals. You can know he gets assists. You know he's involved in so much that Brentford do. Last night, for example, involved in both of the goals for Brentford, and it's no surprise whatsoever. And we're probably going to see that going forward until he does eventually serve some kind of ban. So he's a player that you definitely want to have in your team, and a player who I definitely want to have. It's just a kind of a risky one for the future. I think he'll do well against Leicester, but after that, it does start to become a little riskier, I guess. Let's throw up the bench, guys. Nothing really of interest here because none of my bench players have fixtures. I will be looking to keep Rashford, March and McAllister. As you can see, I'm using the 5-2-3 formation. And that's mostly because the midfielders that I like and want to have in my FPL team for the long term all blank this game week. So outside of the Arsenal kind of midfielders, we can maybe talk about Maddison or potentially Almiron as interesting picks for our midfield. But outside of that, there's not really too much going on. So I'm happy to look at all of these defenders who have great fixtures, look at some of the attackers who have the forwards who have great fixtures as well. Kind of just leave these bench guys from midfield on the bench, and we'll go again next game week with all of these players who are blanking this week but double next week. And Rashford, March and McAllister I think could be some of the highest scoring players in game week 29, so I don't want to lose them. Even if I did take them out, I would be looking at bringing them straight back in anyway. Seems like a little bit of a waste doing that hokey cokey, the direct hokey cokies. However, there is another player who I would like to hokey-cokey out of my team, and I will tell you it's a transfer that I've already made, and that is Erling Haaland out and Ollie Watkins in. We're going to throw that on the screen in just 1 second, but I do want to talk about this very vaguely, and then we're going to go into a little bit more detail. But basically, Watkins plays 3 great fixtures in the same period as Erling Haaland plays 1 bad fixture. I call it a mid to bad fixture against Liverpool, and I think that's really going to make the difference. And Watkins as well has a good fixture in game week 30 against Nottingham Forest. So for the next 3 game weeks, 28, 29 and 30, Watkins is actually a player I really quite like to own. But I am going to make a second transfer, so we're going to throw it on screen right now, and we are going to be removing also Ethan Pinnock, and we're going to be replacing him with Ben Chilwell. Haven't made this transfer yet, so it's not locked in, but it's something that I'm really liking the look of, something I really like to do, because what it basically does is creates a game week 28 team that is pretty much perfect. It is, you can't get too much better than this. A lot of people who are free hitting will be creating teams that are super similar to this. Maybe 1 or 2 minor differences, maybe adding an extra midfielder, removing a defender potentially there. But aside from that, this is really pretty much as close as you can get to the perfect team for game week 28, and I really like the look of that. But remember, guys, if I am going to be removing Haaland, I've got to get him back in. So I am going to be talking about that in just 1 second, but also, like I said earlier, about swapping out Henry, swapping out Pinnock. Kind of want to do it anyway because I don't really like their double game week, and Henry is just slightly better than Pinnock at the moment, so that's kind of convinced me to say Pinnock is the guy who's going to be removed. So let's talk about Erling Haaland and how we're going to get him back into our team, because it is super important that if you are taking this risk and going for someone like Watkins, playing 3 fixtures in the space of 2 game weeks compared to Haaland's 1, then you do need to have that plan to get someone back in. Even if you're not going for Watkins, you're going for Kai Havertz or someone like that, absolutely fine. You just got to have a plan. So let me talk through my plan. So looking through this schedule, I've got Game Week 29 to 35 on screen right now, and you can see Game Week 29, Man City play against Liverpool. It's not the greatest fixture in the world. Southampton away in 30. Again, not the greatest fixture in the world, but you would feel at that point it would be a little bit risky to be going without Haaland for that stage. So we do need to, if we're removing Erling, we need to get him back in probably for Game Week 30. It is going to depend a little bit on your free hit. If you're free hitting in Game Week 32 like me, then you'll probably do want to get him in, because it doesn't matter if he potentially blanks in 32, which he's probably likely to do. We'll find out more about that when the FA Cup games have been played this weekend, and we'll have a much clearer idea of the schedule. But certainly you can see, guys, that if we get Haaland back in for 30, then we'll have him against Southampton, Leicester. We won't have to worry about 32 because we'll be free hitting anyway, and then we'll have him for 33, and more importantly we'll have him for 34, where Man City should have a really nice double game week there, where we will be wanting to captain Haaland. Those of you guys who have triple captain, you'll probably be thinking about triple captaining him then as well, so it's going to be a really important to get him back into our team. So that's what we're going to try and do here. A few other little notes here that I just want to point out is that Brighton and Newcastle are likely to have a double game week in either Game Week 30, but more likely Game Week 31. I can really see that happening. If it doesn't happen then, it's going to happen either in 35 or 36. So we're going to have a Newcastle and Brighton double game week in one of 30, 31, 35 or 36. Most likely to be in 31, because Brighton are most likely to blank in 32, which just gives a little bit of leeway there. So expect that. We do need to make sure we have got our Brighton and Newcastle players at some point, and that is going to impact our future strategy, our future transfers, and it may impact how we get Erling Haaland back in, what kind of money we need, how we remove players and free up money to get him back in. So let's move on and show you what we're dealing with here. Another quick note, I guess, Man United. We want to get Man United players in as well. They'll double in 34 and 37 most likely. So another team we really do want to be getting that triple up on, particularly as they also double in 29. So let's have a look at some of my transfer options beyond Game Week 28. So Game Week 29, I am going to be doing a bench boost, and this is one potential pair of transfers I could do. So I could do Sanchez to De Gea and Saka to Fernandes. This gives me the triple up on Manchester United players, which is something that I do want for the long term. But it also solves my Sanchez problem, because I still have that Sanchez problem where it doesn't look like he's going to be getting game time anytime soon. It's just kind of a little bit problematic. It would be a little bit of a shame to sell Saka to Fernandes, but at the same time, Arsenal players, they don't have any double game weeks, where loads of other teams have many double game weeks. And when Arsenal have their best fixture over the next several game weeks, their best fixture is actually in Game Week 32, where we're going to be playing the free hit anyway. So we can bring back our Arsenal players for that Game Week 32 fixture. So in a way, we could even take a -8 at this stage in Game Week 29 and take another Arsenal player out, Martinelli or Zinchenko, and replace them with another Brighton player to get that triple up on Brighton, which would be pretty nice for their double in Game Week 29, sorry, for the bench boost, and then maybe get that extra double game week in 30 or 31. We're going to have to see what the fixture schedule brings, and that's why it's so important to have multiple ideas of what you can do, multiple ways of kind of planning out those transfers depending on how the schedule ends up being, because we've still got a few questions to be answered, particularly with Newcastle and Brighton. And that allows us to have 5.4 million left in the bank if we make those transfers, which is definitely something we need, which allows us to do Tony to Erling Haaland back again in Game Week 30 and have him back. So that is one plan of getting Haaland back, and I really am looking to do Tony to Haaland. I don't really want to own Tony long term. He is going to become more and more of a suspension risk. He's going to be more and more of a gambling offences suspension risk, and he's also not got very good fixtures anyway. So he, to me, is the player to remove in Game Week 30. So that's what we're going to be doing. But for Game Week 29, this is not our only option. We've got a couple other options that I want to share with you guys. So we could also do Sanchez to steal to make sure we have that Brighton goalkeeper. It's an interesting one. I'm not so keen on this one, but what this move allows us to do is actually take Martinelli out instead of Saka, which is definitely the safer of the two options. I do like Martinelli, and I'm open to keeping him, but I also understand that he is going to be minutes risk after the international break. So maybe there's kind of argument to say Martinelli out instead of Saka, and by doing the steal move, it kind of allows us to do that. Zinchenko to Shaw could also be done on top of that as well, and that's going to give us 12 to 13 double game week players, and then plus Kane, and then 1 or 2 Arsenal players who play against Leeds, of course. Again, leaving us enough in the bank to make that game week 30 move, Tony to Erling Haaland. But there is one more transfer strategy that I think I like the most going forward, and that is Sanchez to Pope, Saka to Fernandes, and Zinchenko to Shaw for a total of -8. It is a big hit, but I would be fine with taking that big hit because all of my transfers would be setting myself up for the future. We would be looking at having Pope for the, and would be on triple Newcastle for their double game week. If they get a double game week in game week 30 or 31, we're already going to be tripled up on Newcastle, and that's going to be a huge advantage. Zinchenko to Shaw, Saka to Fernandes as well, getting that triple Man United for their double game weeks in 35 and 37, or is it 34 and 37, whenever it is, 34 and 37. So again, this is going to be a situation where we don't need to worry about those Man United players blanking because we're going to be free hitting in their blank game week anyway, and it leaves us plenty in the bank, and it also gives us 13 double game week players plus Kane against Everton and Martinelli against Leeds. And it would also be good because we've all of our double game week players will actually be fairly decent double game week players as well. It's not like we'll just have randomers sitting around hoping to get points. They'll all be very good players, so I think that's a real advantage there. And then again, game week 30, Tony to Haaland, and 0.5 million in the bank. So I think this move in particular is the one I like the most. I'm really kind of hoping for game week 31 to be the double for Brighton versus Newcastle, because if that's the case, it's also going to give me in game week 31, I'm going to have to use a transfer in game week 31 because free hits in 32, that will wipe my transfers anyway, so I can't roll a transfer. I'm going to have to make one in 31. And what it will allow me to do is get that third Brighton player. And using this strategy, this plan, actually gives me a little bit of leeway, a little bit of opportunity to sit back and analyse which third Brighton player do I want. Do I want to go back in on a goalkeeper? Probably not. Do I want to go for a defender? Do I like the look of Purvis Estupiñán? Do I like Lewis Dunk? Is Veltman nailed on potentially there? Should I go for a third midfielder? And could I get the triple up of Mitoma, March, and McAllister? Because that would also be an option. I could do Martinelli to Mitoma in game week 31, and that would kind of work as well. So that would be, if everything lands the way I hope it does, then I think this plan is actually really, really perfect for me, because I'll be triple Man United, triple Brighton, and one Man City and Erling Haaland. But it won't matter in game week 32 because I'll be free hitting those players back out again. And then after that, we'll have all of these double game weeks for all of these players. We'll have the triple Newcastle as well. It will just be absolutely insane. It'll be a situation where we've orchestrated something where we get so many fixtures from actually decent players as well. It is going to take a -8 in 29 in order to do that, but it's about setting your team up for the future, taking a little bit of risk of removing Saka and keeping Martinelli as well, maybe for that additional week. But all in all, this seems to me to be the best plan. Now, with that plan out the way, and you kind of understand how I'm going to be moving about my players a little bit, and how we've got a plan to get Erling Haaland back into our team and creating an amazing Game Week 29 bench boost, as well as taking advantage of future double and blank game weeks, we do need to finalise Game Week 28 with captaincy. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who won't like this, but look, I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing for the last few weeks, which seems to have been working pretty well with the exception of March, but then that was kind of a unique situation anyway, and that is not getting FOMO. Do not fear missing out on those popular captain points. And I've done it a few times. I've done it with Rashford. We've done it with March. We've done it a couple of times to varying degrees of success. But mostly it's been positive, and it has helped a lot in boosting my rank. So I'm going to do it again this week. And that's going to be by captaining Martinelli. Obviously, this is not final. Nothing is final until the deadline strikes. But really, at the moment, I feel like Martinelli is the highest upside pick. He's got the highest ceiling of all of these players. Because, you know, with Arsenal midfielders, you get clean sheet points. We're expecting an Arsenal clean sheet. You get an extra point for a goal. We're also getting Martinelli, who I'm expecting to play as a striker. The small risk here, or maybe medium risk or large risk, depending on how you look at it, is Martinelli being benched in Game Week 28. So that is obviously a concern. It's obviously something I need to think about. But at the same time, this is high risk, high reward play. I can maybe go for Saka instead if I feel like Martinelli is too risky. But this is something that I really like the look of. Martinelli is having so many opportunities to score at the moment. It's a home game, and Crystal Palace have been really quite poor recently. So all in all, I like Martinelli a lot. We'll put the vice captain on Harry Kane. I know that's the sensible pick, and if you're asking me to choose a captain for you, which obviously I find a bit of a strange thing, and I'm sure you guys want to pick your own captain, but sometimes people say, who should I captain? I will always recommend Kane to you because I want to give you guys the sensible advice. What I do with my team is not intended really as advice. It's just kind of showing you how I'm thinking about my team, and you guys can kind of, you know, tell me what you think of it. Does it look good to you? Do you think it's a little bit risky? And that's fine. You know, this is a game of opinions and it's also a game of fun. But yeah, certainly I just look at this Southampton fixture. Look at how well Southampton have been doing recently. And looking at Harry Kane and how he's been performing in away fixtures, I still think he's a fantastic option, but I'm just a little bit worried about this one. I can definitely see Spurs bottling it in this game, and it wouldn't be that surprising given that we are talking about Spurs. So all in all, this was what I would say for my captaincy as things currently stand. Martinelli captain, Harry Kane vice captain. The Europa League game may impact my decision making, and I'll try and keep you guys updated. But right now, we're going high risk, high reward. I'm liking a slightly more aggressive strategy in a world where so many people are being safe at the moment. I feel like the fun has been sucked out of FPL a little bit right now. So yeah, we're gonna try and play aggressively. We're gonna follow our heart a little bit. We're gonna follow our gut instincts and see what can happen with it. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you are new around here. And I hope you guys enjoyed me talking a little bit about my strategy going forward. If you do, then I'll keep it included in future videos. If you think it's a little bit too much waffle or not interested in talking about the future and just you want me to just stick to the current game week, then I completely understand that as well. I just thought I'd try something a little bit different today. So yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comments. But aside from that, guys, we've got one more video this week, which will be a wild card strategy video. That will be coming out tomorrow. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.